So it is a very nice, beautiful evening here, and I think you said it's 1 p.m. at your place in Nashville, you said. So I'm very
hmm
happy to have you, Brandon, and would like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I've listened to a lot of the recent episodes, so it's kind of inspiring to be on here with some of the other guests. But my name is Brandon King. I'm a senior at the University of Alabama. I've been on numerous student design teams during my time there. So EcoCAR EV Challenge, which is sponsored by the Department of Energy, as well as the Formula Student Challenge, which you've probably seen make many Formula One cars. But
Hmm.
yeah, I've kind of had a non-linear progression into robotics, so it's kind of interesting. I dabbled in some like manufacturing during some of my internships and stuff like that. So, but I've ultimately ended up in robotics, and that's kind of my passion and my love. It's what I do in all my free time. So,
Especially as you mentioned manufacturing, the last few days I had a discussion with friends. How big is manufacturing becoming, especially now that you guys are about to have a new president, and it's like bringing manufacturing back. But maybe we can go 2 steps back. I really like to dive into the education because very often you said you have a non-linear CV or path. These are the things that I'm most interested in, and so if you're willing to share a little bit, do you have a engineering background when you grew up? Is that an environment you that was very familiar to you, or is that something that was totally like the opposite of the people you grew up with?
yeah. So my father was an aerospace engineer. So
Mm.
it was around, but I was mostly actually interested in medicine. So I was a
Mm.
pre-med going into college. So again, nonlinear path. I just wanted to do, MD because I figured it was the hardest thing to do. And that's always what I like to
Mm.
do is the most challenging. So I did
Mm.
that. And then I realized, you have to be passionate about the things you're doing, especially if they're really hard, right? Because then that
Mm.
kind of weeds it out. So I've always loved tinkering with things though, even through my medicine. I always loved building things. I used to build like toolboxes, like just a bunch of toolboxes. I only needed one, I was a kid, but built like eight. But I used to love to build toolboxes out of wood with my dad. Built a bunk bed, like a custom bunk bed out of wood.
Nice.
Mostly everything out of wood because that was what his workshop was.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's super interesting path to where I am. But so I originally started out pre-med and then I got into engineering because that was pretty much the only thing I was good at with math and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And then I got into student design teams, and then I basically fell in love. But that was my main takeaway was if something was going to be super hard, like pre-med, you have to make sure your passions align because mine didn't. That wasn't what I was passionate about, and it ended up not really working out. So.
This is if you don't mind staying a second at this point. Because your father is an engineer, right? So there was not the pressure on you also becoming an engineer, especially as you said you wanted to do something that is very hard. So this was maybe the pressure you put on yourself in, I would like to show and prove that I can do the very hardest that is out there. And that you started with this already. How was it for you to then decide you would like to do something else? Because here sometimes I feel, and I've experienced this myself, is like now changing now changing path again can show some sort of weakness or uncertainty, or you are not good enough, and then here having the guts to say, you know what, I said it, but I said it was very hard and I want to do very hard, and now I'm not changing necessarily because it's very hard. And even that, if that would be the reason, having the guts and say, you know what, I don't want to spend too much time on things I'm doing because I said I would like to do them, right? Was that something
Right.
that you really struggled with, or was that something that came easy to you because you said engineering is hard too, right? So I will still have the prestige of having a degree that is considered hard. How was that for you?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head in that it can sometimes be super difficult, especially for a lot of type A people who, they're going to go after something, they're not going to quit to realize when you need a pivot, right? Because quitting is different than pivoting, right? And startups and everything.
Hmm.
I think it was really really like a low point in my life trying to realize that, this wasn't what I wanted to do, but it also wasn't for me. Because sometimes, you gotta rationalize and realize the difference between things that are just hard, you have to push through, and things that are hard for the wrong reasons, right? So I was in pre-med and they were hard because I wasn't passionate about it, right? And so I think you definitely hit the nail on the head though with it was a super hard decision. It did not come easy and it took many months. And it was kind of like those the memes, which way modern man, and it's like, a tech startup or like living in the woods. That was basically like my two things. I was like, all right, I'll either be pre-med or I'm just gonna go live in the woods. But I eventually found that, you can pivot. It's not about quitting something. It's about pivoting to something, you have a lot more passion for. And I think that's something too that is kind of broken in the system is having to commit so hard when you're so young, you know? Because I look at myself now and when I was entering college, I thought I was an adult, right? I thought, oh, I've got all this, but really I was a child. My interests, everything was completely different than what they like turned out to be, than what they are now. So I think that's something that's really interesting is there's kind of some pushback all the times of like, you just stay the course. But I think that ends up with a lot of people being very unhappy later on because they just push through instead of realizing like, listen, I'm young, I can pivot, try, that's the time to try out 10 different things, 10 different student design teams, 10 different positions, right? And then you fall in love with something and it just sticks
Hmm.
and you're there, yeah,
There
forever.
is, if you don't mind, my last question here is, was there something specific that helped you to go through that decision? Was it a person? Was it a book? Was it a quote? How did you realize, that you do need to go through this time and that you do need to make this decision? Because, yeah. End period. This is the question. How was it for you, and how were you able to go through? What helped you?
Yeah, I know it sounds cheesy, but it was literally listening to thousands of podcasts. I would on
Yeah,
my walk to classes every single day, I listened to like a different startup founder or just deep tech person, and I realized like, okay, there's definitely more to life than like living and breathing medicine. Like that's not what I want. I want to be able to like actually impact, have a huge change, and have time to do the things I want to do and have that huge change. So I know it sounds really cheesy, but that kind of changed my whole trajectory of my life with a lot of different deep tech podcasts and just listening to a lot of founders and seeing the kind of spirit they had for their projects was like it was amazing. So
I really like that you said this, to be honest, because like an uncle or friend or father or mother or brother would have been too obvious. I just read a name about it, like feeling connected to a person that you don't know. And that can be in an influencer, that can be yeah, a person from magazine or podcast. I need to look up the name of it, the word of it. But uh, I really like that you said this because I think a lot of people are hearing these kind of things, and I'm listening myself to these kind of podcasts and motivational videos. And my wife is always asking me why I'm listening to this, and I said, yeah, I heard very often that you do need to surround yourself with these kind of people. And but in my reality, I don't have this kind of people. They are not these kind of people around myself. So I do need to surround myself with not imaginary people, but not people that are part of my life in reality. As you said, for example, podcast people, and then listening to them. And there's a reason why I have this podcast in the first place. So now hopefully someone is listening to Brandon and then says, all right, this guy did like medicine, right? Which is very, very hard to get into the first place, right? And then doing it and then saying, you know what, I need to do something else, even though I said that I'm gonna do it. And so thanks sharing this with us. It was very helpful for me having these kind of podcasts and leading and reading these kind of books, because the most important part is then taking action. Only listening to it will not solve the problem. You do need to make the decision. You do need to quit, go to
yeah.
college and says, I'm not going to do this anymore. And then you do need to say, I would like to do this, right? You do need to registrate. You do need to do the administrative stuff. This is I think
Hmm.
the second hardest part. So thanks for yeah, diving that deep into your journey. I really appreciate it. And then you said you started your engineering path and now are really into the entrepreneurial mindset, I would say so. Is that
Yeah.
something, or are you still in the engineering mindset because you don't necessarily need to become a founder. You can go to tech and then stay in tech and become an engineer and become part of a team, not necessarily an entrepreneur. How's that for you? Where are you now with your mind and with your yeah.
Yeah, so my mindset's changed a good bit, mostly because of my experiences. So I worked at
Hmm.
some internships with some larger companies like Michelin, Tire, and
Mm.
so it's definitely gone to the entrepreneurial route and startup
Nice,
route. As in,
nice,
my last internship was at a very small company, probably 100 engineers or less, 500 total people, very small company, and I really liked just being able to pivot quickly, move quickly, kind of have free reins. They were basically just like, yeah, you want to order RFID tags to sort that better, like just order it. Just kind of free reins to make quick progress. So I think once you go that route, and you'll see a lot of founders do it too, right? There's no going back. Like you can't
nice.
go back to the old atmosphere, um, and the old ways of working. So I've definitely gotten bitten by that bug. Um, yeah.
I can sense it. I can feel it. I love the you transferring you transferring the spirit of how much you love it and how much you're enjoying the person you are at the moment or the person you're about to become because we're always becoming, right? And especially as you said, pivoting, right? So I talked to a lot of founders and CEOs, CTOs, and once you understood that pivoting is part of the progress and process, then you actually getting rid of a lot of fear, getting rid of a lot of outside validation, which is very important, right? Because doing things for you and not because people are expecting it from you or because you said you're going to do it, right? Once you got really rid of that red feeling, it frees yourself so immensely, and you're starting to enjoy everything much more because you understood that there was some sort of cage. I mean, we'll always be somehow in a little bit in a cage, right? But getting out of there and having like the world is yours, everything is there. You just need to work hard for it and then go for it. Uh, I'm thinking about how to continue because you made a few big steps already in the journey, and so we covered university. Where are you exactly in the path in
In
your journey?
university.
Mm.
Yeah, so I'm a senior right now. So I'm finishing
Okay.
up my last semester because
Hmm.
I had one more extra semester tacked on because of that switch
Hmm.
from medicine. So I'm in my last semester right now, which I'm doing virtually because it's, just a few electives, things like that. But I was on campus in Tuscaloosa for all 4 years. So this is the fourth and, a quarter. But I kind of touch on some of the student design team stuff because I know I kind of glossed around that. But that was pretty formative for me.
Hmm. Formative because of what?
So, I mean, mainly just getting to see that kind of culture. That was my first, like, I'd listen to the podcast, all that stuff. But I think, like you said, you can sometimes get analysis paralysis. If you, it's hard in this century when you have just so much, feedback and so much advice, and everybody's telling you to do something different. So, getting into teams and really like finding out for myself how I wanted to work, the culture I wanted to be around in engineering, that kind of stuff. And student design teams, that's why most of the founders, stuff like that, will come from these student design teams because it's basically a hub of the same kind of passion and the same kind of hours. I'd be in Formula, we'd be hanging out in the garage till like 3 a.m., just working on stuff, talking, planning, whatever, making friends. So that was a really good experience. But on Formula, I was a powertrain member because obviously that was the beginning of my engineering journey. I thought I knew a lot and I knew nothing. I remember trying to do, CNC on the Haas and like everything was just so complex to me, because obviously first starting out, you're in Calc 2, whatever, basics. But that was a really good time. And I met a lot of people. Then I moved on to the EcoCAR EV Challenge, which was turning a car, it was actually the Cadillac Lyric, turning it into self-driving. I think is level 3 self-driving was the goal or level 4. So pretty high up there, pretty much like Tesla like. And I was the controls team lead for that. So that involved basically all the controls algorithms. So adaptive cruise control, so front and back, and then lane centering. And that was kind of my first dip into the software side of things. And so now you can kind of see where my robotics interests come from since I got a lot of, machining and formula, and I got my software, and, now I'm into hardware, and it's kind of now you see how a full stack robotics engineer develops. Yeah, it comes together. But yeah, and that was a really good journey. I did that for about a year and a half. Um, at the end of that, we had a neural network, with 99, something accuracy, spitting out the steering angle. And then we had a model predictive controller working on the front and back distancing between the cars. But that was a really good experience. That was my first, threw me into the deep end of software. But yeah.
Especially if you're now into software. I mean, robotics is this is one of the fields where that offers such a wide range of things that you can do, right? And people got sometimes lost. Use sometimes a path will evolve naturally because okay, I would like to do this and that, and to be able to do this and that, I need this kind of skill set, or I do need to be able to handle these kind of situations, right? So you're building up your skill set um, to become the person who will be able to solve those problems coming towards you. But then there's also the natural selection of there's some things you're better at and there's some things you're worse at, right? If you have that mindset of I'm really like to go through the hard things, how is it for you now since you experienced this already? Um, there's the drawn towards hard things, and then there's something I like it that not necessarily needs to be the same thing, right? How did you manage now as you're coming towards the end of your studies to navigate through the different kind of feelings towards obstacles?
Well, I think again, you nailed it in that there's just some things, you have to do that, are not necessarily things you like. And that's going back to like the medicine decision, like how do you know when to, commit to something? Well, that was obviously my passion. I really wanted to do software. I wanted to try it out really. And I didn't really enjoy it at the end, a year and a half later, I made the neural networks and stuff and I didn't really enjoy it, but I still got that experience. And that was still something that I could take forward. And so I think that's the best way to learn anything, in engineering is just getting thrown into the deep end, because you'll do the project, right? You have a timeline. There's no backing out, right? There's the deliverable to the, Department of Energy. There's no backing out. And so I think on the other side of that, you can figure out, you can take a step back, say, yeah, I really enjoyed software. For me, it was like it wasn't the worst thing, but it wasn't as much as my love for like hardware and mechanical systems, right? But I still had all that knowledge on the other side, and one day if I'm at a job and I need, the software, the firmware knowledge, it's there. And so I think there's something to be said about that is like when people talk about like see so many people, it's like a real fallacy of like, how do I, where's the best place to get started and where, and I just want to tell them like you just need to go like, build a robot, 3D print like a little balancing robot versus a guy off YouTube, And at the end,
Mm.
like you may find parts you really like, you may find parts that you didn't like, but like you'll still have that skill set, right? And you can move from there.
I think I read it just today or yesterday that whenever you get stuck, just act because when you act, things will happen, right? So there's no because of actio reactio, there's no way that you're doing things and nothing is happening, right? The only thing that prevents you from evolving and getting forward is just stopping doing nothing. So whenever you stop, uh, if you're not able to think right, if you're right, so like if you're not able to make a decision, and then you see how things will go quickly further.
Mhm.
You said that you're interested in manufacturing and that you were working for a small company or mid-sized company, I would say, um, with 100 engineers. What were you doing over there? What were you doing in that company? I think you mentioned that
So
before.
it was called BLOX, and it was in Birmingham, Alabama, and they
Hmm.
basically made modular healthcare facilities. So I think they're the largest producer in the United States of these modular healthcare facilities. If you've ever seen something like Walmart Eye Care or Walmart Health, where they basically have these attachments onto Walmart, you can walk in, get an eye exam. They put
Hmm.
those up, and they can put one of those up overnight for a
Hmm.
smaller one like that. For
Hmm.
just Walmart Eye Care, they can just plop it down, connect everything in 24 hours. they also
Nice.
do some larger facilities, like entire hospitals. They have a lot in Florida with Encompass Health, which is some behavioral health, and they can put those up in, I think, about 2 months was like the fastest, or a little under that. And they basically just ship all the containers to site, attach them. It's really cool. They're trying. Their goal is they're trying to turn kind of this outdated industry of construction into like this modular, Lego customizer where you can hand it
Mm.
to any repairman, any person on site, any general contractor, and it's super easy to put together. Because you'll see, and that's why the big push for humanoids, right, is there's a big skill gap and labor gap in a lot of these industries. So Blox's position is really cool. They're working to just basically, you can have somebody unskilled come in and do the skilled labor part, right? Because it's like as simple as Lego box putting them together. So
I think just last week or the week before Y Combinator, they announced that they are now putting or going heavy on manufacturing. So they're really,
mhm.
I think it was a nice thread on X, where they already highlight a few, maybe the first batch, I'm not 100% sure, but really mm, encouraging young founders or founders in general to go into hardware, and hardware is hard. So I'm working for a robotics company, right? So we have a very big portfolio of hardware, and yeah, it's not easy, especially as this is combined with artificial intelligence. So AI robotics or cognitive robots, as we call them here, is it's hard. The hardware is hard. The supply chain is hard. And so and you were mentioning CNC machines before when you were with Formula. So maybe you can tell me a little bit about how this was and you were mentioning earlier on that you enjoyed doing this working with wood. So what is it in manufacturing that you think is really unique or and interesting and is igniting a fire within?
Yeah, well, that kind of goes back to always like just I don't know. I guess I was born. I always heard that manufacturing was the hardest part of the process. Like I heard
Mm.
Elon Musk talk about that with Tesla. It was always maybe not the hardest part of the process, but the limiting factor of the process, right? And so that was what made me interested in manufacturing was kind of that angle. And so that's at Michelin. That was like my first foot in the door. That was a massive manufacturing facility. Um, and it was really cool to see how they break everything down and their automation and processes and stuff. But it was also really interesting to see how much farther we have to go with that stuff. You're talking about China and kind of the manufacturing war, like you were saying, and how we want to bring it back home. And I know I've seen a lot of people have spaces about it on X, and I know that's a very hot topic. But I think hopefully with some new policies that are coming in, we'll be more competitive. Because if you look at China and stuff like that, some of these parts that they're selling and just the material cost is more than the part price with shipping. So it's obviously being pushed and funded and subsidized by the government. So I think with some new policies, we can definitely get back in the race and get up there with that subsidization from the government, the new administration. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think there's gonna be a lot of, like you're saying, Y Combinator. I think it's gonna start exploding. I think that's gonna be the humanoid boom, the new humanoid boom.
I can't remember where I read it, but it was something about you were mentioning now the material. So I was reading something about a calculation about what is actually necessary from a material point of view, and
Mhm.
especially, and now I'm getting in trouble with my vocabulary here, but we are talking about so raw material that you need to dig out of of the ground, of the earth, right? And there's not too many places where you have this kind of access and where you have this kind of sources, right? So this kind of material that you actually need to build all those chips, where you need to build all those different kind of materials, the electronic parts, and it's just iron and all the other ones. Like I said, I'm a little bit limited here by my vocabulary in English, but the point being was that China has it big on a lot of these materials, right? So and then now thinking about how much more you need to serve all those companies that are popping up, right? not only in China but worldwide. Will this have a bigger impact on our environment? Because now, especially in the US, I mean, this is a huge land. This is massive, right? But now trying to find out where is this material laying or lying. So underneath you do, because this industry had been running for for quite a while, but there's had and there's development, but not this huge development and not that huge advantages that had happened, right? In terms of finding out which materials are where located and then how to get them out of of the ground, because this will be, again, you said the word right, a limited factor, right? If we would like to build all those computers and all those humanoids and all those robots, how are we going to build them? With what? And what kind of material do we need then? And if China then will be a limited factor because they will say, we need this for ourselves, right? How are we going to supply the rest of the world? Will this be having a huge influence of uh, this kind of industry, of this kind of machinery that is necessary, of this kind of technology to be able to detect this kind of material? Any thoughts on that, or is this going too far away from our conversation?
I think the material may be a little outside of my domain, but I completely agree
Same.
in the fact that we're getting to the point now where it's new limiting factors. So you have things like material sourcing, energy sourcing, energy
Mm,
development, energy
mm,
processing, all of that are now being, what used to be the hardest part of the process, and 20 years ago, may have been the hardware, which is still very challenging, right? But I think now we're switching to like, okay, what's the limiting factor? What's the most challenging process of AI, chips, the hardware is now becoming energy, right? And material processing and stuff like that. So I think you'll see a lot of cool startups, in the next few years related to that. I've already seen a few energy ones that are pretty amazing. So
Is there something that it's always on, it's already what you plan for yourself on your mind? I mean, is there a roadmap or some goal that you can articulate or would like to share? Or is that something that is still too foggy to talk about, or you going step after step, so not thinking too far ahead? How is it that, how is it for you?
yeah, for me, it's not thinking too far out ahead just because I have some solar knowledge, and I have some energy processing knowledge from some classes and stuff like that and some projects, but I don't have enough knowledge over that domain,
No,
to
no, no. I was talking more about we've been looking at the past of you, so what's Brandon's past, but now we're looking at what's happening today and what's happening tomorrow. Do you have an idea about what you would like to do with the skill set that you acquired already, or any plans what you would like to do with it?
Yeah, yeah. So moving forward, right now I'm on the job hunt for like probably a robotics focused role here in Nashville. So I've had a few different interviews and stuff like that, but that's really my plan is to get hopefully with a smaller company. There's a lot of cool companies in the Nashville area. Like Animax is one doing some cool stuff with animatronics. They work for Universal and Disney. Whisper Aero, you may have also heard of. Very
Hmm.
cool small company out here. Started in Nashville in country, middle of nowhere, Nashville, building these like ultra quiet drones. They started like I think 10 years ago, so they've been at the technology for a while. And they just had a big partnership with Black and Decker, the
Hmm.
hardware brand. So obviously going to implement all their hardware and tech into their new Black and Decker products. But yeah,
Hmm.
that's the future for me. Is probably a role like that. And like you said earlier, the podcast is who you surround yourself with. So that's really my goal, to just be surrounded by more of those people. You know.
Just 1 or 2 weeks ago, I had I think I published the episode last week, was with Nima, and he is a director of AI at Path Robotics. And Path, they
Mhm.
just raised 100 million for their welding application. And it was a little bit new for me. Maybe I'm not that familiar with the area, but yeah, they're situated in Columbus, Ohio. And so
Mhm.
for me, it was not, like I said, I mean, I'm not a US citizen, and even then, but it was new for me that this could be a hub, right? There's a lot of things happening, and I was quite surprised. And he said, yeah, and there's a lot of things that we're offering. I mean, just look at the rents in San Francisco or the problem that these guys have with the different parts of the city. And then you have this other city, this Columbus in Ohio. And then now I'm thinking about nice. They obviously, why should there not be other places than the big two or three names that you hear everywhere when it comes to startups and AI and robotics? So you think that Nashville could also be one of the points that could flourish in the next few years?
Definitely, definitely. I mean, it's funny you mentioned the San Fran stuff because that's actually Nashville's been seeing this big population boom, probably like Columbus, like Austin, Texas, right? Of all these people flooding in. It's just crazy. Everyone I meet here is like, "Oh, where are you from?" They're from, California or Oregon or, somewhere over there. So I think definitely you're going to see that. And I think it's mostly just people flocking to better conditions, like you said, lower rent, more freedom. I think, here the taxes to have a startup, to have a small stage company would definitely be easier than the previous places. So I think you're going to see that a lot. And I know in Austin too, there's a bunch popping up like ag startups, small vehicle startups, stuff like that. Just because I think the environments are friendly, because you've got these 100-mile stretches where you can go out and test because there's nothing, there's no one. So I think it's really cool for that kind of deep tech.
Nice. And we were talking about what one of the other ones, one of the other businesses or industries that is flourishing in Nashville. We were talking about what I had in mind. It was country music, and then you were mentioning bachelorette parties. And it would be nice to see that deep tech could be the next big thing in Nashville. Is there a special reason why you would like to stay there? Is that because of family and friends, or is that something, yeah, you would like to share?
Yeah, my wife's in grad school here, so we
Mm.
just moved here recently, so we'll be here for the next few years. But I definitely I've gone to a few events here. There's a cool entrepreneur center here that's relatively new. Most of their events are focused towards like fintech and healthcare,
Mm.
like tech. So when they refer to engineering here, it's a lot of like startups in like healthcare space for
Mm.
software.
Mm.
But I definitely think that with Whisper Arrow and stuff like that around here, you're going to see more deep tech. And I'm hopefully gonna try to make that, happen. Try to push for that. So
I mean, I really like that you like this fearless, right? I wish when I was this kind of young. How old are you?
I'm 22.
Uh, like having the guts and having the skill set and really having the mindset of, and this is, like I said, the reason why I did this podcast is uh having the understanding of there's nothing that separates you from anybody else. There might be some more skills, might be some more experience to gain, but there's nothing fundamentally thing missing that separates you from anybody else who's a founder. And just realizing this and saying, so if I could do it, if he can do it, I could do it. So this is what I really like. I can feel it, and you're really how do you say this in English? Transmitting it, and it comes out of you. I'm really curious to see what's come towards you. Is that something because there's the engineering part and then there's the entrepreneurial part. Are you, and we speak about this before, that you said diving into those projects really helped you level up your skill set when it comes to engineering. Now, with having the entrepreneurial mindset, is that something that you said, I'm going to start doing it on a smaller scale, or is that something where you said, no, I'm gonna join a startup and see how this is, and after a few years, I think I have the experience, the skill set, and the network. Is there any decision made yet? Do you would like to? I'm just starting it, and then I will figure it out. Like uh, yeah, founding companies. That's something that you have in mind, or is that something that you said I will delay this for a few more years until I have the skill set?
definitely. I mean, I think 10-year outlook, founding is inevitable. It's just like there's so many things that in my projects that I want to take so much further. But I think, like
Mm.
you said, first, it's important to get around the right people and the right skills. I think more so to not be able to come up with a company or create a company, but I think more so to have success. Because I think, you're seeing in the space, there's lots of thousands of them, popping up every other day of, small consumer tech but I think if you look at the ones that can really find product market fit and stable growth has, experienced founders, right? From, SpaceX or, Whisper Aero or any established company where they've learned a lot of skills. So that's definitely my goal. It's changed a little bit, over the years. I used to think like, oh, I could just, make a company any day. I mean, but it's definitely something about like the skills you need and the long-term vision um, for success. I think there's something to be said about, it might be a little easier to grab VC dollars with a short outlook with less skills, but I think for actually, impacting the world and changing the world, I think it takes a long-term skill set, which might not develop for me, for the next few years, the next few jobs, but
This is what it comes when you're listening to the right podcast, right? You are realizing because if you hear this over and over again, you think, if one person is saying this, might be wrong, right? Maybe just in this occasion or this situation, but then you hear it over and over again, and then you think, everyone says it's much harder than you thought, and it will take much longer than you thought, and it will be much more complex than you thought. So it might be true. So I love the idea of you that thinking and having this energy now and keeping yourself from like exploding and realizing that this will take time. It will take 5 years, it will take 10 years to not necessarily founding a company, but getting good at things takes time. This was something that I was always being very impatient. Very hard to learn, and yeah, I think you mentioned this much earlier in the podcast. So I hope I don't sound too judgmental here, but I'm 41 now, and uh, I just recently had the feeling that I'm an adult. So this is like 2 years ago, and and then so I don't want to say it will take as long for you as it did for me. So it seems like you're in your journey much further ahead than when I was 22. So congrats to that. And but it's nice. It's nice to hear because I'm someone who really thinks it's nice to have a democratization of this kind of feeling. Um, that it's not like something holy, something there's a barrier. So people are burning down those barriers, burning down those walls. It says, I can do whatever I want, right? Some things stay attached. Hard work, it will take a long time. You do need a certain skill set. You do need network. You do need an understanding. You said something like a product market fit. So some of the things they will sustain, right? They will stay there forever, most likely. But some of the things, it's do you need a degree? Do you need to wait until you're 42? Do you need until you raised this amount of money, right? So there's a lot of things that people are doing for democratizing and more people getting access to that. So thank you for being hopefully one of those who's doing that. When it comes to the podcast and the mindset and the skill set that is necessary, do you think you will develop more on the way, or is there something that you said, I need to read more, I need to do some courses? Is there something that you have planned? Because yeah, is
yeah, I think I just need to dive into more projects. It's just for now, it's just like the length of time and how many projects I can get under my belt, And if I'm at a
mm,
company that moves super quick, like Blocks, you can get a lot of projects in a really short amount of time and a lot of
mm,
experience. But for me, I found that's the most useful way to learn. And that's projects on my own time and also projects at work. Recently I've been working on like a balancing robot, kind of inspired by Handle. I think I told you a little about. And
mm,
just diving into that side, I mean, you kind of talked about this breaking down barriers. I just love the movement of acceleration on X and stuff like that because it's just never been easier. And I think that's what we're starting to see too with these people realizing. I mean, you can ChatGPT and Amazon, I can have a problem with hardware and I can have the bolts and the inserts here like literally the next day when I come back from, work. And then I can continue, right? There's no gap. You used to have to, wait weeks or wait weeks for the knowledge or for the parts, right? And now it's pretty instantaneous for both. So I think that's also why we've been seeing kind of this breakdown of barriers.
mm. True, I haven't thought about this. I mean, it's obvious now that you're saying this, but yeah, s- a lot of things used to take much longer, right? And I'm using this, let it be as ChatGPT or some other tools out there. Uh, for example, I don't know if this interests you, but I, I just I just moved here a few months ago, and there's still a lot of things to do here and there. And normally, I have in Germany you say you have two left hands, so
Mhm.
I try to avoid those things. And normally, I get my brother, who is very skilled in when it comes to these kind of things. So he's a mechanic, and he built everything on his own, right? And every time I have him over at my place, and I said, okay, I do it myself, but you supervise me, right? And or actually, he said it, you do it yourself, and I supervise you. So today I didn't have didn't have him with me. So it's fuck, this is gonna be so hard because I'm unsure how to do this or how to do that. And then I had just, you know what? I have this mobile phone. I use this all time to sparring and challenging my own thoughts and having or brainstorming or whatsoever. I said, okay, now I can use it in the physical world as well, right? I do the physical parts, and then I said, this is not working. How should I do it? And as you said, normally it would have taken me much longer to accomplish the things I was able to accomplish, and now. As you said, yeah, very well articulated. Uh, I can do it. I could much faster, and the learning curve is much faster. So the result will be there much faster. So I was able to accelerate my progress and my results because of the new technology, right? That has not been here before. And having access to that really puts us in a position where we should take advantage of that.
Heck
How
yeah.
is it for you to, sorry, would you like to ask me something?
No, no. I was just saying, heck yeah. I love the innovation. And I mean, it's like it's never been a better time to build kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. Um, yeah, especially with the access that we have. Um, You were we met over X, and how is the platform for you? I mean, now it gets a little bit more personal, but do you see there's a good vibe within the building community, or how is that for you? How do you experience that?
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, it's unlike any other platform for connections, for meeting people. I mean, I've only posted like a few things. Like one was like a 6 degree of freedom robot arm that I was working on like a year and a half ago. And then just from that, I got like two calls with people to just chat about like robotics opportunities and what they were working on. And it's just it's amazing. I would say anyone that's not on X definitely has to get on it.
Hmm.
It's crazy for networking, for meeting people. Um, just you get to meet like so many like-minded. Like I feel like everyone on there is just like a founder and is working super hard at like their specific niche. It's just so cool. I don't know. There's no other platform like it right now.
And would you say that putting your stuff out there was something that was hard for you, or do you say, I don't mind?
Definitely, definitely. It was super hard because I think, especially as a perfectionist, as a lot of like engineers can be and stuff, you want it to be like, oh, this doesn't look as good as this guy's, project. His is so much better, when may have been, out in the field for 6 years. So it was definitely super hard, even putting out what I consider crappy projects out on the platform. People are like, blown away. They're like, oh, this is awesome. Let's talk, how, and it's funny because, I feel like, especially a lot of engineers are perfectionists. So I would say just throw it out there, whatever you have, just start posting.
Hmm. I hope that you were answering the question like this, but yeah, I wanted to hear it from you. So, and I'm asking this to inspire other people as well. Like, there's always somebody behind in their journey, right? There's just two steps, like three steps, whatever it is, and pushing yourself and say, you know what, we should get rid of this idea of how we would like to present ourselves to others, and there's so many opportunities if we get rid of this feeling. So you're sitting there and should I push this button and should I release it? And because I just pivoted when it comes to my media presence. So I was all about only robotics and AI for the last few years. And then I said, yeah, but it's limiting myself. And but all the gurus are telling me I should be the robotics and AI guy to go to, right? So and being very niche, super niche. This is limiting the things I would like to do, right? There's some things in biotech that is happening that I'm really interested in. So, and why should it be in manufacturing, as it said, right? I have this manufacturing background, so I used to work for Siemens, and they were producing large gas turbines. So, and I mean, nowadays it's getting more and more with what kind of data do we get out of it, a digital twin and all those things. But when you are on the shop floor, there is no AI. There is no
Hmm.
robotics. There is like people welding with their hands. Like you have a CNC machine in front of you that you program, okay, but there's so much smell of iron and like all those
Yep.
things. So manufacturing is very fascinating to me, and yeah, I really like that you said you pushed yourself to I don't know how much of a push it was for you in the very end, but you said, okay, I just published this, and you said if you do a few DMs, you are now being my podcast because me too. I saw your arm. I said, dude, that is nice. That is it's nice. I like people working and building.
Yeah, I think there's something we said too about just build because sometimes like oh the torque test it's a little under like what I expected. Like people are gonna be like, what? That's a 5-to-1. That's but I think sometimes you just gotta like put it out there because that's what the mantra of every successful SpaceX, every successful, new startup is just like fail fast. Like
Hmm.
post fast, build fast, and put it out there.
How and this is like a rational question, how you're supposed to get feedback, right? I mean, you for sure you can try to learn and fail everything on your own. It's, this is the mistake I made last day, but this way reading and podcast can also help and putting your content out there as well. There's if you get feedback and act and apply the feedback, right? You can build so
Hmm.
much faster and the progress can be so much faster. So, and as you said before, being in those projects that you have been in the past, people with different backgrounds, with different skill sets, they can complete each other and they can be an accelerator of your knowledge.
Right.
Um,
And I think we're seeing that more too with like SpaceX and stuff like that, where building in public is just becoming the mainstream. Like, oh, I want to see this stuff. Like in the old days, you didn't see the guts behind Apple. You didn't see the guts behind these, emerging Nvidia, right? What you would give now to like, oh, how did they do this? How fast did they move on this? How many founders would love to get that information? And so I think it's
mm,
cool in this digital age how companies are starting to pivot now towards like everything's online. If they fail, it's online. If they succeed, it's online. So I'd say in general, right? That's a good rule of thumb.
really love your energy. I'm doing this very often, especially at the end of my podcast that we're coming towards to. But so where do you see yourself? Like this is a very generic question, but I would love to see and have a conversation, recorded or not recorded, I don't care. But like in 1 year's time, seeing where Brandon is and what you have been doing and continue doing this because there's so much waiting for you, it seems to be. I mean, so you're so young. So I'm envying you of your youthness, because more time means more possibilities. But yeah, where do you see yourself in a year or two or three or four?
Definitely in the robotic space, especially in Nashville, and hopefully building a robotics hub here in Nashville as well. That's one of the kind of things I have on my radar. I want to start some meetups and stuff like that. We just moved like
Mm,
literally a few months ago
mm.
and have settled in, but that is definitely something I want to do because I think there's people in every city, Columbus, Nashville. I just think it'd be cool to kind of start a scene here. So that's where I see myself in a year.
The meetup is a great idea. It's a great idea to get people together, and there's so much energy behind that, and really having the opportunity to being the one who brought everyone together, then can be a very
Mhm.
satisfying feeling. So yeah, keep me posted. Keep me. I would love to share this on all the platforms I'm on. Uh, Seeing you organizing some robotics meetup in Nashville, that would be really really cool.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I'll send it out. You can blast it on all your stuff.
That would be cool. Then thanks for taking the time. I'm really happy that I think we wrote on Friday or something, and then today is Sunday. So this is, I think, the one of the quickest get together ever. Thanks for answering so honestly, especially about the early stages, because I think there's a lot of value in it. And I know this can be very hard to talk about. So I hope this was all right for you to spend sometimes there. And yeah, thanks for sharing your energy. I think this is something that I'm always enjoying. Someone with so much energy as you have. This is refreshing and inspiring.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I mean, it was a great experience and I hope we can do it again.
Yeah, this, as you said before, this the long-term goal is to keep this going. So this the goal for this year was 50 episodes. So you are now my 42nd episode. So I hope I will be able to make the 50. And yeah, maybe we can do the 100 or the 150. I'm looking forward to it, Brennan.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I appreciate you taking the time today.
Take care and have a good day.
All right, see ya.
Bye bye.